Welcome to Live Breathe Film, episode 114. You're here with Doug and Murph. Thank you for joining us. Today, we'll be sharing the films of 2025 that we're most excited to see. Let us know if you share our enthusiasm for these projects, along with what else you're personally excited for in the comments. So, Doug, let's dive right into our most anticipated films of 2025. So, for our most anticipated films of 2025, what Doug and I did was we both put together our individual top 10 lists of movies that we're anticipating for the year. From there, because there was not a lot of overlap, to be perfectly honest, we broke it up into three different tiers. So Doug has his own tier with 7 movies. I have a tier with 7 movies, actually 8 movies, because I cheated, as you'll see when we get to my list later. And then we have a tier for Live Breathe Film, which is we'll talk about last, and that ultimately is our 3 most anticipated movies because they ended up being on both of our lists. So we'll start with your tier, Doug. You can start from your number 7 movie. Let us know where you ranked it overall on your top 10 and work your way up.
Yeah, so the lowest one on the tier Doug, I guess we're calling them, or at least that's how we notated it.
That's how it's notated.
Is How to Train Your Dragon, the live action movie, which was my 10th overall movie. So just made my list. I like the How to Train Your Dragon cartoon. I've been giving a lot of hate to the live action remakes of cartoons, but this one doesn't feel like as much of a beloved animated movie that it feels that it bothers me as much for some reason. And the trailer I recently saw, I thought it looked fun. They're using the old music. They've got Gerard Butler back as the dad. I don't know. I think this one could wind up being just like a fun movie. I know the story I'm getting, and I like the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This was just something that I think could be kind of a fun movie to see in theaters.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think this is one where I'm thinking about what's going to get me out to the theater, and I think this would be one of the movies on my list that would get me out.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was surprised, I guess, just because I didn't know how big of a fan you were of the original film. That I do know about how your dislike of the Disney live action films, but
Yeah.
it'll be interesting because DreamWorks has yet to do it, so it's the first of their kind, that I believe at least. And
I
then
think so. Yeah, I mean, I hope it's not a trend for DreamWorks, but I think when you're thinking about movies that could easily lend themselves to a live action movie, I think this is one of those. I don't think we need a Kung Fu Panda live action movie,
yeah,
or like a Wild Robot live action movie, or I mean, I definitely don't need Mike Myers dressing up as like Shrek.
yeah. Well, he's coming back for Shrek 5. The release date was just talked about the other day, so I don't think we have that to worry about for a while.
Yeah, so I mean, I just think some movies lend themselves to being cartoons. I think this one, I could see a live action version of it.
Yeah, no, I know it's a very popular DreamWorks one. I haven't seen it, but I did notice that the dragon in the movie looks very similar to the dragon in the cartoons from all the trailers.
Yeah, he looks
Which makes
very
sense because it's CGI.
cartoonish. Yeah, he's got definitely like a cartoonish look.
Yeah,
So yeah, we'll see how it plays out, but definitely very interested in seeing it. And on my enthusiasm scale, it's just made the list, so
yeah.
take that with a grain of salt, I guess.
All right. What do we got next?
Yeah, so next on my list is 28 Years Later, um, which was ninth overall. I I liked that the 28 Days Later movie. There was a 28 Weeks Later movie that don't remember liking as much, but I guess what gets me interested about 28 Years Later is a couple of things. One, I think it's interesting to see, what a zombie movie looks like, because we've gotten a lot of zombie movies of like this is life right after the outbreak.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten a lot outside of like The Last of Us of like this is how life changed a couple of decades after a zombie apocalypse. So I think this kind of has a Last of Us kind of feel where we see how society's evolved,
Hmm.
such
Yeah.
far after. And then I believe it's got the like some of the original cast members back. Maybe
Uh,
no,
to
that might
my
not be true.
knowledge, is Killian Murphy won't be in this
Okay,
one, but it's going to be a trilogy. So I think the goal is he's going to be back at some point in the trilogy.
but
Um,
Danny Boyle's back directing,
yep.
and him and Alex Garland wrote
That's the
this one.
draw. Yeah. Because neither of them were really involved in 28 Weeks Later. Alex
Yep.
Garland did some uncredited rewrites, but yeah, this is like the true sequel to 28 Days Later as far as the creatives involved with the first one um, being involved with this one.
Yeah, so I think that kind of made the if you didn't have Danny Boyle and Alex Garland back, I probably wouldn't have this on my list. But yeah, I think the fact that they're both back for this movie, I think this could be a really great movie. And like I said, I feel like it could have kind of like Last of Us vibes. I think I saw they were on horseback in the trailer. Last of Us, that's how they get around is
Yeah, no, I
horseback.
mean
So
this spring early, yeah, bow and arrow too. I got
yeah,
Last of Us vibes big time, and it's yeah, I mean, no, it's not zombies this spring summer between these two, between Last of Us season 2 and 28 weeks later or 28 years later. It's the cordyceps fungus and the rage virus. Um, but yeah, it's going to be exciting to see how this franchise returns.
yeah. No, so I hope it's good. Um, but we'll have to just see how it ultimately plays out, which well easily takes me into another franchise
Yeah, let's hear
that
it.
um, I'm cautiously optimistic about, and that's the new Jurassic World Rebirth movie. Um,
I am surprised that this is on your list based on the Jurassic World franchise so
yeah,
far. So
so
explain what makes this one different.
Jurassic. I'm a big Jurassic Park fan, as you are.
Yes.
Um, haven't wasn't super thrilled with the Jurassic World series, although I think the first Jurassic World movie was a fun popcorn movie, even though it wasn't didn't feel like a Jurassic Park movie to me.
Hmm.
Um, what it gets me excited about Jurassic World Rebirth, and my excitement may easily be misplaced. I've been burned before
Yeah,
on some of this stuff,
we
like
definitely have.
the last Jurassic World movie. We were both super excited that they got the old cast back, and they just kind of botched that one. So,
That
um,
that they did. But yeah, they totally got us with enthusiasm just by bringing back the big three of that original film.
yeah. So, but what gets me excited about this one is it's got the writer of the original Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 2 movie, who hasn't been involved in any of the other old Jurassic Park movies. So we know we've got somebody that's writing this movie, who's made, I think, one really amazing movie, and I think Jurassic Park 2, although not anywhere near the level for me as Jurassic Park 1, is still a pretty good movie.
It's the best of the
And
sequels by far.
yeah, so I think getting him back is really interesting. The 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 two some of the cast members I think are also really interesting with this movie. That's got Scarlett Johansson in the lead role, who's um, a great actress. Jonathan Bailey is his star has been rising. Was great in Wicked. Um, the
Mahershala Ali's in this one, right? Yeah.
Mer- yes, Mahershala Ali's in this one. A
He
great
had he
actor.
had free time because Blade keeps getting pushed back.
Yeah, because Blade, he probably will continue to have free time because Blade's, as Corey would say, is never happening.
Yeah.
Um, um, the other thing that's interesting about Jurassic World Rebirth that I like is Garrett. I think Gareth Edwards is a good director um, for this type of movie. I think he got really big based on the movie Monsters. Um, he's he did the Godzilla movie, which was hit or miss, but I didn't think there was anything wrong with like the filming of the movie. The Creator was, I think, his most recent movie, where he just, I think he's got a CGI like background. I think that's where he got started, and I think he understands how to do CGI well and do it on a small budget. I think the Creator folks were blown away with the effects that he was able to bring into that movie, and how great they looked based on the budget of the movie. So I really think he could be the guy that makes brings the dinosaurs to life in a way that they look you know much better than they have in the more recent movies, and really stretches the budget of Jurassic World Rebirth.
Yeah, I
So
mean that film you're talking about is what got him the Godzilla job. As so,
yeah, the
um,
monsters movie, that was and that was all that was all on a shoestring budget, and just
yeah,
making the monsters look big. And then I don't think you've seen Creator, but Creator,
I have not.
uh, he does a lot of really cool things, with not a lot of money, and a lot of it just comes from the fact that that's where he got started, was doing visual effects. So
Gotcha.
he understands that more than other directors do.
Okay.
So we'll see. I think it's got a lot of things that are positive, but I think, you know, we've been burned a lot by this franchise, and I'm assuming that's why you're staying as far away as possible from this movie.
Yeah, I mean, staying as far away as possible, and that it's not making my list, but I will be seeing it probably opening weekend, and having my fingers crossed that it is a return to form. But I'm going in with the expectation that it will not be a return to form, despite the writer of the first two being back. But I can understand why that would make you cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, and I think Gareth Edwards is underappreciated. I think he can.
Yeah, I
I think
mean,
he's.
you're definitely a big fan of his work between the creator and Rogue One. Um, Granted, he got
I
pulled
mean,
from Rogue One and
I
Tony
was gonna say, I don't
Gilroy.
think he really did Rogue One.
He did like a decent amount of it, and then I mean, you could tell from the trailer versus the final film, like a bunch got cut, and but I mean, he's the director of the film ultimately. His name is on it.
His name is listed as the director.
Yes,
I'll agree
yes.
with that. All right. Well, that takes me to the next movie on my list, which is not a franchise, but a movie that I'm really, really interested in, which is Sinners. Um, it's a Cooligan movie, who I think this is outside of what was that movie that got him started?
Fruitvale Station.
Fruitvale Station. Outside of that movie, he's been doing a lot of IP,
Yeah,
between Black Panther, and the Creed movies. So this is kind of a return back to an original concept for Ryan Coogler. He's a great. He's
Ryan Coogler.
Coogler. That's right. I knew that didn't sound right. um,
Yeah, I could tell it didn't sound right the first time, but it like didn't sound wrong enough. But then when you
yeah,
said it the second time, I
it
was
was
like,
in the
okay,
same ballpark,
yeah,
just not quite there. But yeah, so anyway, he's a great. I think he's proven himself with Black Panther, and the Creed movies. Although I'm not as big of a Creed fan as you are.
no,
Um,
you're not.
but I think I like vampire movies. This is supposedly a vampire movie, so I think we've gotten a really interesting at the end of this past year, take on vampires, from Robert Eggers with Nosferatu. I'm interested to see Ryan Coogler's take on vampires with Sinners, and what that movie winds up looking like. So I think they haven't shown us a lot, so it's hard to say what the story's going to be. But I trust, like, if you're gonna go back to original movies, I'm sure he's got a great script, and he's gonna show us something pretty special.
Yeah, I was surprised this made your list just because the enthusiasm didn't seem like crazy there when we did our draft the other day. Maybe it so much wasn't the box office enthusiasm wasn't there, but
Yeah, I think there's a difference. Yeah, between box office. How do I think other moviegoers are going to like it versus or go out and see it and spend a lot of money, or am I going to go out and see it? So I try to separate those two because I've drafted based on the movies I'm excited about. That hasn't panned out well for me in the past.
Yeah. Okay.
That
Can't
that takes
argue
me
with
to
that.
that takes me to the next one on my list, which is another one that if you watch the box office movie, didn't probably rank it based or didn't draft it based on my anticipation for the movie. And actually, Murph, you wound up getting it because you
I stole it.
you uh, you
Mag
stole
it.
it out from underneath me. This movie is Companion. I rated it 6 overall in my movies. We just recently got a trailer that tells us, what the heck this movie is because previously it was clear that the star of this movie,
From The
Quaid,
Boys. Yeah,
Jack
Jack
Quaid.
Quaid.
So it seemed like Jack Quaid was abusing this woman for no reason.
Seemingly no reason.
No reason, and
And
it seemed like kind of sick and twisted in that way.
yeah,
Um,
or like she, it was some sort of thing where if she was enjoying it, it wasn't really showing, but like her arm being on fire and things like that. Um,
yeah, it just kind of it looked really creepy, and it's Sophie Thatcher is the woman I was referring to, who was
from
just in
Heretic.
Heretic and did a fantastic job in Heretic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it just looked kind of like, oh man, this is like creepy. This is kind of creepy. I don't really understand like why this woman's hand is being forced to be lit on fire by seemingly Jack Quaid forcing her to put her hand on fire. Um, it's with this next trailer, it's kind of revealed that Sophie Thatcher's character is like a robot. I don't know if she's a pleasure robot or
That's the way it,
okay,
that's very much the way it comes across.
yeah. So then it's like, okay, well, she's not really a person, so that makes more sense. Of like he's probably like living out the things that he fantasizes about or is interested in, but
Like a
would never do
Westworld
to,
type thing.
yeah, would never do to a actual person. Um, but because this person isn't, or because this is like a robot android type of thing, that this isn't a person, and so he could do it, and so the morality of it is kind of like grade from where the original first teaser trailer was. So it made a little bit more, kind of brought it into a little bit more um, perspective as to what the heck is going on. Probably makes it seem a little less creepy. Um, but as far as my anticipation for this movie, I still think the trailers look really interesting. Um, I think Barbarian, the creators of Barbarian, which I'm kind of mixed on Barbarian. I really liked the way it was shot. I liked the first. I liked basically all of the movie except for like the last bit of it when they reveal what's going on with the Barbarian. I just conceptually it didn't kind of. I didn't like where it went, but
Sure.
I mean you can't argue with like
I ended up
the
being way higher on like
yeah
of the movie overall than you were.
yeah you were
Um,
definitely higher. I thought it was
when
a
I really had no interest of it going in, but then I heard based on what you had to say, and it sounded like there was a lot of twists and turns, and um, that kind of that sold me eventually to watch it the moment it hit Max, I think, or Hulu, now Hulu, one of the two.
oh that's right, you didn't see it in
Because
theaters. This is one.
it was a very quick release. Like it was like
Yeah.
in theaters in early September and on streaming by like mid October, like before Halloween. I'd wanted to catch by the time I wanted to catch it in theaters, it was like just too late.
Yeah, yeah. This is one of the few movies that I've actually saw in theaters and you didn't.
Yeah,
Um, Usually it's the other way around.
yeah,
But yeah, this is. I thought the way that they shot that movie and kind of the way that they created a sense of dread, and just like a lot of the things about that movie, I just really thought were well done, and so I'm really interested in seeing Companion, and I'm excited to see what these guys or these folks can pull off with their follow up with Companion.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see this one, and then we've got the director of Barbarians follow up. If not later, like by the end of this year, probably early next year. Which was I know shopped around Hollywood and for a pretty damn good price. Because everyone wanted to work with Zach Kreger after Barbarian and see if he'd be the next like Jordan Peele. So we'll get an idea based on Companion as far as his producing creds go. Because Jordan Peele's definitely done well on the producing side since Get Out. Um, but yeah, it should be interesting to see how this group of individuals continue working together in the horror genre because they're from the comedy world. Um, how it comes started with Companion.
Yep, and that yeah, it's interesting that we're starting to see these folks that are coming from the comedy world and translating it into horror.
Yeah, it really is.
With like you mentioned Jordan Peele, um, the the Hand movie.
Oh yeah, talk to me.
Talk to Me was a horror movie that I really enjoyed and was pretty successful.
Yeah, no, it was did really well.
And those two guys were comedy YouTube folks. So yeah, it's interesting to see. You don't feel like those two things should be connected, but I guess they
For
are.
whatever reason, it works.
Yeah. But anyway, that takes me to my next movie, um, which is Mickey 17, which is 5 overall on my list. If you were interested in my most anticipated movies, or you followed along for my most anticipated movies of last year, Mickey 17 has carried over to this year.
Repeat. Yeah.
Um,
Corey, you were the
I
only one. Corey and I didn't have it on our list last year, but
yeah, so
you did last
hopefully
year and again this year. I think it was 10 for you last year, if I'm not mistaken. Where did it land for you this year?
it was number 5.
And that shows the big difference in what you were excited, like how much you were excited for last year versus this year.
Yeah, it's definitely not that my anticipation has gone up for this movie. It's just I think there's less movies that I'm excited for this year
Yeah.
over this one now. It's a follow up to director Bong Joon Ho. He's directed Parasite, which was uh,
Best picture winner.
Best Picture. Yeah, it won the Best Picture. Did which was kind of fascinating just because of the fact that it's a movie that wasn't in English.
Yeah, first one to do it.
I think it was Korean is maybe.
Yeah, he's South Korean.
And then he also is responsible for the Snowpiercer movie, and I think he might have been involved in the Snowpiercer series as well.
Yeah, definitely the movie.
I'm sure he.
Which came out on Netflix. That was an interesting film. And then, but I think this is only like his second or third like English language film following Snowpiercer and Okja. And then he went back to his roots with Parasite, which ended up being his biggest hit before this one.
Yeah, and so I think just the credentials of the director, just because I think Snowpiercer's a really interesting movie, and then Parasite I really enjoyed. That's got me excited about this, and plus Robert Pattinson starring in this movie. It's a sci-fi, which sci-fi tends to speak, or I tend to really like sci-fi movies. So kind of like that cloning sci-fi idea, I think is really interesting. Kind of reminds me a little bit of that Sam Rockwell movie, Moon.
Yes.
So
Yeah, where you get you get the actor doing double duty.
yeah, so I'm interested in kind of seeing it, and I think we don't get a lot of sci-fi, so anymore it seems like because it doesn't seem to do well in the box office. So I'm excited to kind of get a big budget sci-fi movie.
Cool. Yeah.
From it.
Definitely looking forward to it. Not as excited for it as you are. Mostly the trailers, the tone of it has been different than what I was expecting. Just, I guess, a good thing that because now if it doesn't come across the way the trailers are, I'll probably end up liking it even more. Um, but it definitely lowered my anticipation, which isn't always a bad thing.
Yeah. No, definitely not a bad thing for you.
Yeah,
Um, and then the number or the next movie and the last one I'll talk about that's on this tier Doug list is Wicked for Good, which I have 3 overall on my list. Um, this is the sequel to the smash box office hit Wicked, which will maybe get
Wicked or
a
Wicked
part
Part or Wicked
or
Part One, if you see it and you see the title card in the movie theater.
yeah. So I don't know if eventually it'll get like a Wicked thing in front of the title, or how they'll differentiate Wicked and Wicked for Good, because Wicked for Good doesn't have a part 2 there.
Not sure why they just didn't go Wicked and end it with Act One, kind of or similar to um, Dune, and then do Wicked Act Two as the second movie. I think that would have been a clever way to differentiate it from like all like the novels that get split in half versus the like a Broadway adaptation that's being
Yeah,
put in theaters. But fuck me, right? Let's just
yeah.
create this entirely new title.
So yeah, it's a little confusing. For whatever reason, Hollywood tends to like to make confusing titles.
Yeah,
But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with the first Wicked movie of just how much I enjoyed it. I think Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, crush it in the role. Jonathan Bailey's great. Yeah, I just think the cast was really well. I think the directing was top notch. Lots of practical, which I didn't expect from the trailers. I thought it was going to be very heavy CGI, so I'm excited to kind of just see how the cast and directing just push moves into the second movie, um, which is the second act, as you mentioned, of the play. I have seen the play, so I kind of have an idea of where it's going. I don't think it's. I think it's going to be harder to adapt the second part just because of where they go with the second part, um, and it kind of pushes closer to like some of the concepts that folks have are more familiar with, but of this series,
like Wizard of Oz.
like the Wizard of Oz type stuff. So yeah, I'm not. But I think the talent was all there. That I feel confident that they're going to do a good job, and yeah, I had a really great time with the first Wicked. So it's I would not have guessed prior to me seeing Wicked that Wicked for Good would be on my top 10.
Yeah, I mean, when that Super Bowl like first commercial came out at the beginning of last year for the first movie, I thought it looked like
Looked
garbage.
horrible. Yeah, it looked terrible.
And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Like, not going to be upset at all with the amount of Academy Award nominations it gets. They'll be well deserved. Um, I imagine for the most part. We'll see exactly what he gets nominated for in another week or so. But yeah, I liked it. I'm definitely excited to see how it ends. I haven't seen the Broadway production, so I'm not sure where it's going. I mean, I have an idea where it has to end based on the Wizard of Oz, but how it gets to that destination, how the journey leads us there through Act Two, I'm excited to see. Seems like from what I've heard, it's going to take a lot more. They're from like the novel that um, was adapted into the Broadway musical. That they're adding new songs and things like that, and more material to, I guess, maybe flesh out Act Two. I mean, I've heard mixed things. I've heard the majority of people prefer Act One over Act Two, but I've also heard Act Two is more. I'm not going to say cerebral because I doubt it's cerebral, but it delves into more of the darker themes of the first more,
Yeah,
um, which could make it a deeper movie. I'm sure it will still be very fun though, and full of color and everything like that that drove people to see the first movie. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm just wondering, is Ridley Scott going to be able to make a Gladiator 3 in time? Um, so we get what was it?
Oh,
Uh,
um, Wicked.
Glicked. Yeah, so we get Glicked 2 in November of 2025. Does I don't think so. I think he's doing a Bee Gees movie next. But
Okay,
that man makes movies like flies through them. So I don't know. Never put anything past him. But
I'll be good
again,
if we don't get another Wicked. I'm not really dying to see that those
yeah,
two movies come out at the same time again.
once was
I
enough
think,
for you.
yeah, I think movies are probably going to steer clear of Wicked for good, if I had to guess, because I don't think Wicked was such an unknown on how it was going to perform, and now people know how big of a hit that movie was.
Yeah,
I think For Good is going to. A lot of people are going to have high expectations of how that movie performs.
for sure. I would expect the same.
But yeah, that completes Tier Doug. So I don't know if you want to take us into
Yeah,
Tier Murph and
we'll
just kind
go
of
to
go
Tier
through
Murph.
what you had on there before we hit the LBF tier, which is that um, the cream of the crop.
Yeah, exactly. It it yeah, sure. We'll call it the cream of the crop. But no, it's interesting. When we get there, we'll talk more about that. But your briefly before we get to mine, I'll just say yours and mine are very different in tone. And the types of
Yep.
movies we had. I was surprised by how much franchise fare you had, um, whether it be sequels, live action remakes. Um, really, those are the two types. Um, but you did have some like movies basically strict on like originals that you picked because of the people, the creators involved with them, whether it's Bong Joon Ho for Mickey 17 or Ryan Coogler for Sinners, and then just the team behind Barbarian for Companion. Um, but yeah, I was surprised by the amount, like by maybe not necessarily the amount, but also which ones you chose. Um,
Yeah.
but
I was surprised too.
yeah, I mean, every I think the only one that I'm absolutely going to see uh, of the year six movies, everything. The only one I'm not sure if I'm going to
How to
see
Train.
is How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah.
A, I have because I haven't seen the original, and B because it's a live action remake. And again, I haven't seen the original, so I think I prefer to see that one. Um, but yeah, every other one
Obviously,
on the list I'm going to see.
I didn't realize how popular How to Train Your Dragon is, but it's got to be immensely popular because of the fact that we've got a live action remake, which is like you said, DreamWorks' first remake, and then you've
Yeah,
got Universal is doing a How to Train Your Dragon world.
yeah,
Like
in their
they're
new
doing a
theme
whole
park in Florida,
they're doing a whole like park based on this
which
movie.
coincides with the movie coming out this summer.
Yeah,
Um,
which probably wasn't planned, just a
Totally not.
coincidence.
Yeah, complete coincidence. And yeah, it had a trilogy of animated films. I think it's had a TV show.
Yeah, so I
So
guess this is like
it is,
this is
and
probably like a popular IP, I guess.
yeah, and it's one of their more critically acclaimed franchises. I think it's probably their most critically acclaimed franchise as far as like having like a full trilogy or even like two or more. Um, so yeah, um, I guess it's something I have to see um, before the new one comes out, before the live action one comes out, and then I can compare
Or
versions
you
this year.
or you could just watch the live
Nah, I'm not
action.
starting with the live action one. That would be blasphemy. But all right, we can go into Tier Murph now, and yeah, you're gonna see that mine is a lot more auteur driven. Um, I do have a couple franchises on here, but a lot of these, I imagine people listening may not be aware of the films. They might be aware of the creatives involved in them, but when I see the titles, it might get a lot of like, what's that? And I did cheat with one. I did do a tie. Um, my fifth pick, I did a tie. But we'll get to that and I'll explain why. So the again, 7 movies on not, well, 8 because I've tied, but for 7, and which ended up being 8 overall for me, which gives you an idea that 2 of mine on tier LBF were number 9 and 10 on my list. Number 7 is Good Fortune. It is written and directed by Aziz Ansari, produced by him, Alan Yang. They were the co-creators of Master of None, the Netflix program starring Aziz Ansari, which I absolutely loved. It stars Keanu Reeves, Aziz, Seth Rogen, Keke Palmer, Sandra Oh. It's interesting that this one actually was made because what was going to be Aziz Ansari's directorial debut, being Mortal, it suspended production because of issues on the set with Bill Murray. So they ended up having to completely scrap that movie, and he ended up making this one instead, I believe after the strikes. But yeah, as far as the plot for this film, it follows an angel named Gabriel, played by Keanu Reeves, whose failed attempt to show a struggling man, Ansari, that money doesn't solve one's problems, by body swapping him with his wealthy employer, Jeff, played by Seth Rogen. And this results in Gabriel losing his wings while the work he did as an angel begins to unravel around them. So it sounds like a high concept comedy.
Yeah, very high concept.
Yeah,
So
which we
it's a body swap movie, which means it's not
yep,
we've
we're kind of
got
getting
multiple body
we're getting a
swap,
trading places, but like to a degree, where it's
but we've
putting
also
a
got
ritual
we've got
forward.
Freaky Friday this year, so we got at least 2 body swap movies.
Yes, we do. Um, but yeah, very different. This should be
Yeah.
an R-rated one, while the other will be a PG one. Maybe PG-13. Who knows? Disney has a little
Little
more.
spice now that they've
Yeah,
got
exactly. Now they
Deadpool and
got
Wolverine.
Deadpool. Exactly. They've changed the game. Wouldn't shock me if it's PG-13. Their audience has grown up in 20 years. So yeah, Aziz very much showed his directorial and writing chops on Master of None, along with Alan Yang's writing chops. Granted, he's just a producer on this one, but very excited
Yeah.
to see Keanu in another comedy after his return in Bill and Ted a few years back. I'm expecting this to be a lot better than Bill and Ted 3,
Yeah.
um,
I hope so. Yeah,
based
for
on
sure.
all involved. Seth Rogen was actually one of the actors that was originally going to be in the other one, um, that was supposed to be Aziz's first one. Both
Okay.
Keke Palmer and Seth Rogen and Aziz were all in that other cast, along with Bill Murray. They were the 4 main actors. So everyone but Bill Murray returned for this one. And yeah, excited to see what Aziz can bring to his debut film.
Yeah, I'm definitely not surprised you picked it just because you did love Master of None so much.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't connect as much with that movie. Or not movie, the television series on Netflix. Um, and I think it was just the black and white when he started going to like Europe and stuff. It kind of just
Yeah,
got a little weird for me.
season two got more experimental for sure.
Yeah. So, but definitely not surprised just based on how much you loved Master of None.
Yeah, exactly. Um, all right. Next up for me, we've got Ari Aster's Eddington. I had this at number 7 overall. Um, Corey, you would love this pick. Who would have ever thought an Ari Aster film would make my top 10 most anticipated? Based on my first viewings of Hereditary and Midsommar, I don't think anyone. But if after Beau is Afraid and then going back to those 2 films, my opinion on him as a filmmaker has increased substantially.
Is that because Boa is Afraid set such a low bar that these 2
No,
movies
I
just look so much
actually
better?
liked Beau is Afraid a lot, and I think I'm going to be right in the future that I was ahead of the game. when it comes to the opinion of that film. I think I'm ahead of
That
time.
movie was like unwatchable for me. I had to turn it off like after an hour plus.
Well,
But I was afraid.
I think this
He
one,
did.
despite
He did.
having Joaquin Phoenix in the lead role, it will be much different and probably more like the first two, um,
Yeah.
in a
So
horror
I didn't
vibe.
realize. I was just actually looking it up now. Ari Aster didn't direct Beau is Afraid. Is that right? He just produced it.
No, he directed, but I was afraid.
Okay. Okay.
He wrote
That's
he
what I
wrote it.
thought.
He wrote and directed that all three of his
So
movies.
that movie that kind of turned you around on Ari Aster is probably the sole reason this movie isn't on my top 10.
That's fair.
Um, because I liked Hereditary and I really liked Midsummer. Um, but Beau is Afraid is just like I said, unwatchable for me. Uh, but I hope this Eddington's more of like the Midsummer Hereditary vibe and less Beau is Afraid. Because I do think like Midsummer I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Well, with this one, I don't know exactly what we're getting. We know it's a western. Um, the plot follows a small town New Mexico sheriff with higher aspirations. That's the premise you get on Wikipedia. They call it a contemporary western black comedy. I've heard rumors that it's set during the pandemic, during the COVID-19 pandemic. I've heard rumors of um, I don't know if it's zombies or anything like that, but I've heard lots of different things about this film. But what we do know is that it stars Joaquin Phoenix, Pedro Pascal, Emma Stone, Austin Butler.
Yeah, the
So
cast is
those are your
ridiculous.
big names. A24 is putting it out again. So despite the fact that they invested a lot of money into Beau is Afraid and didn't get the return that they were likely expecting after his first two films, or maybe they knew they kind of that they probably knew they weren't going to get it once they I mean
Sometimes you
they
gotta.
essentially let him do whatever he wanted. That was like his like reward for those
Sometimes,
first two.
yeah, I think sometimes as a studio, they're willing to let these directors just make their passion project that isn't going to make any money and that they'll probably lose money,
Yeah.
just to kind of keep them around. And I think probably that's what Bo is Afraid is. Um, yeah, I think they're trying to keep these directors happy so that they can
Continue working.
they know in the long run that they're going to bring in money, and
Yeah.
they're still making these movies are relatively tend to be lower budget compared to like the big blockbuster superhero stuff.
Yeah, 100%. I think I mean Beau was Afraid cost and that was big for A24. It cost $35 million. I mean, their highest so far has been Civil War, and I think that was 65, if I'm not mistaken. 50, only 50. So
Okay.
they don't work with big budgets. I'm not sure what the budget is for Eddington yet, but Ari Aster can't have two flops in a row, so it's going to be more accessible this one than Beau was Afraid is my prediction. Um, but I mean, you can't go wrong with Joaquin, Pedro, Emma Stone, and Austin Butler. You wouldn't think, at least. So definitely looking forward to it after Ari's first three films, and we'll see what he
Yeah.
does with this one and with his career moving forward.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you at all. I think this is definitely something that could be on both of our top tens. After 2025 ends, depending on how it plays.
Yeah, yeah, and I think my list is films more likely to make our top tens, um, even if or you might not necessarily be anticipating them as much now because we have a lack of info and compared to these other ones where we have either trailers out or we know the franchises already very well. Um, these
Yeah.
ones we're just basically going off plot synopsises and the director's past work. Um, so um, yeah, we'll see. But next up, we've got another Emma Stone film. We've got Begonia. I had this number 6 overall. This one is directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, So it's another pairing between Lanthimos and Emma Stone after The Favorite, Poor Things, and Kinds of Kindness. So they're looking to continue the success that they've had. While Kinds of Kindness wasn't the box office or critical success that Poor Things was, or The Favorite, um, we'll see how this one is. It's should be a lot more accessible than Kinds of Kindness, in the fact that that was an anthology film, while this is just one story. It's a science fiction comedy. It's a remake of a South Korean film titled "Save the Green Planet." Um,
Okay.
the synopsis of the film is two conspiracy obsessed young men kidnap the high powered CEO of a major company, convinced that she is an alien intent on destroying planet Earth. Um, so another high concept comedy.
Yeah.
Um, so we've got Emma Stone is the CEO. Jesse Plemons, who was also in Kinds of Kindness, is one of the two conspiracy obsessed young men. Um, I'm not sure who the other one is. The only other actor listed on
How
Wikipedia is Alicia
how old is
Silverstone.
Jesse Plemons? Is young man? I don't know if I would.
Um, he's 36.
Okay. Sure.
Um, yeah, he's not an old. I, I don't know. Um, I guess he's young enough. Um, but I mean, he's listed in the cast as a conspiracist beekeeper. So I'm assuming he's one of the two conspiracy obsessed young men.
Yeah, that
Um,
tracks.
yeah, but he was in Kinds of Kindness. So it's a reunion between all three of them as well. Alicia Silverstone was in Killing of a Sacred Deer by Yorgos. So everyone announced in the cast is in this, has been in Yorgos Lanthimos film previously. The guy's kind of on a roll for me. Um, but I've enjoyed nearly every one of his films. I think only his first one I didn't enjoy at all. Everyone since then, I've been a fan of. Um, whether it was whether it was one of his Greek language films or his English language films. Particularly, I'm a fan of his English language films, and that's not just because I speak the language and don't like subtitles. I've just preferred these ones, and they've haven't a lot of the ones in the Greek language. He wrote it with another writer, while the
Mm.
ones in English language was either um, not written by either of them, um, or it was Yorgos and um, I think, yeah, for the most part it was other writers. Um, but
Yeah, we know you just don't like to read. Just
yeah, that's
stop
it.
making
You're
excuses.
right. That's it. But
um,
yeah, I'm excited to see Emma Stone and Yorgos do
yeah.
another movie together. Ari Aster is actually producing this one, so it also another connection between the last film on my list. But what were you gonna say?
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say I've only seen Poor Things. I think out of his work, which I thought was pretty good, but didn't like blow me away. So that's probably why I just don't have it on my list. I'm pretty sure I haven't seen any of his other movies outside of Poor Things.
Yeah, and it's definitely not the writing aspect, because him and the other writer have done basically an equal amount of Greek films. Greek, they've actually done
Maybe it's
more
got
English
more of
language
like
films.
a Greek sensibility versus an American sensibility.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, whatever it is, um, he's definitely been on a roll since I've started watching. The Favorite was the first one that I caught from him, and then I've seen each that and his following ones in theaters, and then caught up with all his other movies at home since then. But yeah, I'm just excited for more of their teamwork, because he brings out some of the best work in Emma Stone.
Yeah, excited to catch this one on streaming.
Well, maybe you'll end up seeing it. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll
In
see.
theaters, you never know. Um, All right, then we'll go to my cheat. We got the double header. So I got Marty Supreme and the Smashing Machine. That's actually not one film. That is, even though it sounds like it could be a movie.
It
Um,
actually does sound like one a movie.
yeah, no, what it is. The reason
Sounds
why,
like a band, right? Marty
yeah,
Supreme
it's
and the
not.
Smashing
Oh
Machine,
yeah,
the
totally.
Smashing Machines, maybe.
Yeah, totally. The reason why I have this little double feature together is it's the breakup films from the Safdie brothers. So you've got Josh Safdie um, directing Marty Supreme and Benny Safdie doing The Smashing Machine after they had their biggest film together with Uncut Gems. They had been done, I believe, 4 films together prior to, like, as co-directors prior to this. But now they're both doing solo movies together, or solo movies apart from one another. They're not. Neither of them are producing each of them, or neither of them co-wrote. Um, but Josh he's directed one, like his first feature. He directed solo, but everyone since then was a collaboration in some way, shape, or form. Even The Curse, which was a big kind of Betty Safdie's TV show where he went out kind of on his own. Um, Josh was a producer on that one. Um, but Marty Supreme is one we know exactly when it's coming out. Both of these are A24 films. Marty Supreme opens on Christmas Day. It's another Timmy Chalamet movie. Um, he plays a famous ping pong player. Um, so even though they're calling it a fictionalized original rather than a biopic, it is based on an actual person, Marty um, Reisman. Um, and I don't know if he was nicknamed Marty Supreme, but it is based on him. Um, Other cast members include Gwyneth Paltrow, uh, Tyler the Creator, um, Fran Drescher, Sandra Bernhard. It's a very Penn Jillette. It's a very weird collection of actors. But I mean, really, the draw here is Timothy Chalamet. Um, it's why he's had the silly little mustache that
The
he's had
mustache,
of late.
yeah,
He
the
has,
eyelashes,
yeah,
as Nikki Glazer referred to them in
yep,
her
exactly.
monologue.
Um, so he has finished filming the movie, so he can get rid of that now. Um, as we talked about, he'll be performing as Bob Dylan on SNL pretty soon, like as a musical guest. So I think he's going to want the mustache gone by then. Um, or maybe he just likes it. Who knows? But yeah, it's a period piece to a degree. I mean, this guy, Marty Reisman, was born in 30. He was the U.S. men's singles champion in table tennis in 1958 and 1960. Um, and yeah, this if Bob Dylan isn't Chalamet's Oscar movie, this other one could potentially be one that's in the cards next year. Um, and he continues his run of having big Christmas movies after Wonka and A Complete Unknown. Granted, this is an
Yeah,
indie movie, so it's not going to
I
be.
don't. This is not going to be a big Christmas
No, I
movie.
mean it's a sports drama, but it's continuing of him having a movie that's going to be big in at least some circles. The
Sure.
cinephiles will certainly
The
be
cinephiles, yeah, I don't see this being a
hyped
blockbuster hit.
for this movie. Yeah, at the moment I don't, but we'll see. We'll wait till trailers come out and see from there. Um, and then we have the Smashing Machine from Benny Safdie. This one doesn't have a date yet, but it has completed filming, so it will be out this year. Um,
It's got The
un-
Rock, right? That's the big draw.
yeah, and unlike Marty Supreme, which Josh co-wrote with another writer, Benny Safdie did write this one solo. He also edited the film. because he is an editor as well. I mean, this guy can seemingly do it all. He's and freaking great actor also, based on Oppenheimer and Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and other films and TV shows that he's been in the past few years. But yeah, The Rock's the big draw. It's a reunion with him and Emily Blunt. It's a different type of sports drama than Marty Supreme. While a period piece to a degree, this one's like the late 90s. It's about MMA fighter Mark Kerr. So we've got another sort of sports biopic to a degree. Um, there's no real names other than Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt that I think people would be aware of, based on the cast on Wikipedia. But I mean, if you've seen images of the film, or behind the scenes stuff, I mean, the work that the Rock has done to change his appearance is pretty wild.
Yeah, he's like he looks unrecognizable from what I've seen of him. It's kind of crazy
Yeah,
for somebody that's so recognizable in every movie he's in to kind of put these prosthetics and things onto him that just kind of hides, um, you know, the Rock.
yeah.
It's kind of wild.
So this is really looks like this is his Oscar type movie. He's trying to do more high quality films, um, and do something like Adam Sandler did with Uncut Gems, and really maybe like change the perception of him as an actor. So it'll be exciting to see um, how it's ultimately received and how good the film is later this year, whenever it does come out. But yeah, that was my little cheat, and because the Safdie brothers were a team, and now they've broken up, but they both have their own sports dramas coming out this year for May 24. So I thought it fitting to be in one spot together. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely a cheat.
yeah. Oh well. Couldn't pick one over the other, so fuck it. Um, and next up, as far as my big auteur movies, we've got the untitled Paul Thomas Anderson film. It's a very popular title. I mean, he's had it many times before. But rumor is it will be titled The Battle of Bacton Cross. We'll see if that ends up actually being it. Um, I've heard other titles, but as of now, Wikipedia is calling it The Battle of Bacton Cross. But
That's what I've seen online too.
yeah, the big draw for this one is Leonardo DiCaprio being the lead. So this is the first collaboration between PTA and Leo. PTA, per usual, writing and directing, producing. Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead doing the music. But what's crazy about this one is the budget. This is a Warner Brothers, for whatever reason, Leo, he's giving over $100 million to PTA for this movie. Um, Rumor is it's by far his most accessible movie to mainstream audiences. Has a lot of action elements from what I've heard. Um, we shall see. It's going to be released in IMAX. Um, it's got, other than Leo, the cast includes Regina Hall, Sean Penn, Alana Haim, Benicio del Toro. So it's got a solid supporting cast, but Leo's clearly the draw, and it'll really be a test of what PTA could do with the budget. Can he finally have a hit outside of like really independent movies? And
Yeah,
are Warner Brothers crazy for giving him this budget?
yeah, I
We'll
think you're
find out
right.
in August.
It's just they're hoping Leo is a big enough draw to pull audiences in, and then if it's got a mainstream concept, or maybe they're just hoping it hits mainstream. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah, Leo's one of the only actors who can do like what I'm assuming is going to be an R-rated film, an R-rated original, and actually have an audience. Whether and every time he does it, he's teamed with a all-timer. Um, so we'll see. And then as far as I alluded to, I have two franchise films in the top of tier Murph, and they're actually um, the top two films for me overall, as after my PTA one, which was number three overall. We have at number two, Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. Um, Doug, I know you didn't want to include this. Basically, I know you're not as big of a fan of Knives Out necessarily as I am, but the fact that it's a
Yeah.
Netflix movie totally seemed to disgust you. But so was Glass
Doesn't.
Onion, and Glass Onion was fantastic in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of view it as like a new TV show coming out. I don't know. It just feels weird to put it on the movie list because of it's a Netflix movie, and I don't view Netflix movies typically to be on that same level as like a theatrical. But I know you love the Knives Out movies, so it's
Yeah,
not
and
surprising to
I
me
mean,
that it's
yeah,
on your list.
and I mean, I saw Glass Onion in theaters. Like I see the big Netflix movies from the directors that I care about. I mean, Ryan Johnson to a degree is an auteur at this point, I would say. Um, and whether it's The Irishman, Marriage Story, or a bunch of other Netflix one, The Killer, um, the more important Netflix movies that get theatrical runs, I'll see them in theaters before they go on Netflix. I know Glass Onion had an actual like theatrical release, like in AMC theaters for like a week. So we'll see if something in Cinemarks and the other big chains. We'll see if the same happens with Wake Up Dead Man. But otherwise, I mean, at this point, you kind of know what you're getting. You're getting Daniel Craig as Master Detective Benoit Blanc, and you're
As the Colonel
as the
from
current, yeah,
KFC.
yep. And you're going to get an all-star cast of suspects to for whatever crime is committed. This time we have Josh O'Connor, Glenn Close, Josh Brolin, Mila Kunis, Jeremy Renner, Kerry Washington, Andrew Scott, Kaylee Spaney, Thomas Hayden Church, and Daryl McCormick. So another killer cast assembled by Ryan Johnson. Um, the dude just is great at mysteries. Um, when we get to our TV list, I didn't get to include it just because of the sheer amount of great TV that I'm anticipating this year. His mystery series that he does with Natasha Lyonne, Poker Face. But I mean, between Poker Face and these Knives Out movies, um, Ryan Johnson just is killing it with mysteries. Whether it's Murder of the Weeks on Poker Face or these feature length films with Benoit Blanc. Um, from incredible performances by Daniel Craig, who by the time I don't know how many of these movies are going to end up making, it'll be interesting to see. Do people look at Daniel Craig? Is the first thing they think of James Bond, or is the first thing they think of Benoit Blanc? You can laugh,
All right.
but I don't.
There's no way. Yeah, you're
No, I don't think.
crazy.
I don't think I'm remotely crazy for saying it.
You're absolutely crazy.
No, I'm not. Because
Unless people
when
just
people think of
like,
James Bond, they have lots of other James Bonds to also think of. Um,
but Daniel
while
Craig is
this is a
like,
fully
de- definitely.
owned character.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if enough time passes and people forget about Daniel Craig as James Bond and these movies keep going, maybe. But like, I don't think. Or
Well,
and maybe
this is
you're
where
like,
it would be helpful to have JP on because he would say, "Doug, I think you're wrong." Um, that it's
yeah, no,
very much
you're
possible.
absolutely crazy. And then like if
And
you,
probably more people see it because Netflix they have these algorithms that determine that like a billion people watch their movies. So they're definitely a lot bigger than the James Bond movies, and that's why they don't put their movies in theaters because Netflix has this model, and I don't know.
you're
So
crazy. And it's like you're just completely discounting the worldwide interest in like the 007 James Bond movies and yeah, no,
no,
you're I think
no,
you're
I'm
wrong on
not.
this one at all. You're completely wrong.
I can't be wrong because it's not the future yet.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
we
it's gonna look silly when we go back and watch
uh,
this.
all right. I mean, I said it after Glass Onion, so I'll say it again after this movie comes out, assuming it's
Yeah,
as good
no.
as I'm expecting. Um, but yeah, if he keeps doing them, I see no reason why. This can't be the definitive role of his career. Um, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm kind of loving how angry you are at this comment.
It's just yeah, it's just yeah. All right, we'll see.
But yeah, Wake Up Dead Man. Check it out on Netflix later this year. Um, and then number one, I don't think you're remotely surprised by my pick. Um, I had
Nope.
Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Um, so Christopher
Because they
McQuarrie,
can't put part two for a part two movie that
yeah, another poorly
the
titled film.
first movie didn't do well. So they're like, this is not
Yeah,
really a second movie, even
yeah.
though it
If they didn't
very
include
much is a sequel.
if they didn't include part one in the title, this like this could work. It could have been Dead Reckoning and The Final Reckoning, um, and they're clearly connected. But having Dead Reckoning Part One and then just dropping the Part One and then now The Final Reckoning, it's weird. I'm not going to pretend it's not. I have my 4K Blu-ray that has Part One on on the box. While if you see it anywhere on streaming, it's just Dead Reckoning. It's weird. It's going to look weird when I have The Final Reckoning next to Dead Reckoning Part One. Oh well. But I mean, at this point, you kind of know what you're getting. You got Christopher
Yep.
McQuarrie back for the fourth time as director, fifth time as a writer. Um, we have Haley Atwell, Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, Vanessa Kirby, Pom Clementif, uh, and many others returning from the franchise, along with new actors as well. Not a crazy amount of new ones, just because, again, it is a part two, and they're largely just finishing the mission from Dead Reckoning Part One. But I mean, this has been a franchise that I've loved since 1996, since opening weekend. So we're going back to my childhood. Like we're going back to elementary school. Like I've been a day one Mission Impossible fan. So I'm very excited to see how they potentially do wrap up this franchise. They've said it before, like that the franchise is ending or moving on to a new actor. I don't necessarily believe that that will be the case, um, but I think they're trying to boost the grosses with calling it like a final entry because of the performance of Dead Reckoning Part One, because it opened right before Barbenheimer and did not do what it was supposed to do. So we'll see if it moves back to the heights box office wise of Fallout and Rogue Nation and films of those sort. But as far as the
Um,
um,
yeah, I mean, I think I'm a little worried about how this movie's going to ultimately perform, just based on the fact that it's so. The first movie very much ended in like like
cliffhanger
a to be
fashion,
continued.
I mean, it ended with the movie felt like it was a complete movie, but it ended with a like, all right, it's clearly not over. Like you got to go to the next part to get the end, like the end
Right.
of the mission.
And so, based on the fact that the first one performed so poorly, and I imagine that the second one is going to be tied so much into the first one,
Yeah,
I'm a little bit concerned about that from like a performance perspective. But um, I thought the Haley Atwell Tom Cruise chemistry was incredible in
yeah. I thought it
the Dead
like the
Reckoning movie.
chemistry with Rebecca Ferguson had been fantastic, but like the Haley Atwell one, like was woo, real good.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. Probably one of my favorite parts about that movie, and then that car chase scene is probably one of my favorite car chase scenes in cinema. So uh, definitely some things to like about the movie, although I didn't like it as much as you did.
Yeah, which is fair. I don't think you've liked any of the Mission Possibles as much as I have,
That's probably a fair
because
statement.
I mean this is I mean at this point probably like the longest running best franchise in my opinion, um, like consistency wise, um, and with overall quality. So yeah, I'm excited to see um, how it goes, and we'll definitely talk more about it in May when it's finally released. Because it feels like for the last 5 years he's been working on these Dead Reckoning movies, or Mission Impossible movies, or Reckoning. We'll call it the Reckoning
The
movies.
Reckoning, the Reckoning
Um,
series.
Yeah, been crazy how long these two movies have taken. It's been all Tom Cruise has done since the pandemic. So
Yeah.
we're finally coming to an end. All right. So that's it as far as our individual tiers. So as when it comes to tier LBF, again, now we're going straight up franchises. And I guess we can call them the big three, since they were on both of our lists and we only have three movies. Um, we can
Crazy the lack of overlap.
It really is. While TV, on the other hand, is full of overlap. So number three for the two of us was James Gunn's Superman. Doug had it ranked 4. I had it ranked 10. Doug, you want to talk about it
Yeah.
since you
So
had
I
it
get
so much higher?
what. Yeah. So
In fact,
I
you
have
could
it
talk
higher.
about all of them because you have all of them higher than me.
Yeah. I mean, I think Superman. I mean, James Gunn has a pretty solid track record for me just in the movies he's made. So it's Superman's primarily living off of that because I'm not someone that has is in love with the character of Superman. I think probably my best or my favorite iteration of Superman is probably the Superman animated series that came out around the same time as the Batman animated series. Is the most I've liked Superman. Um, Probably too young to have like really gotten into the Donner Christopher Reeve Superman. Although I can appreciate that's the Superman for a lot of people. Um, Man of Steel I thought was good. Um, the other Superman entries from Zack Snyder I didn't particularly like. Um, I think probably one of the things I didn't like about the Zack Snyder entries is the the darker take on Superman. I don't think really works for the character as well because kind of what Superman's thing is he's kind of like this goody two shoes character who is so powerful, but is restrained by his moral compass. And it seems like James Gunn gets that and is trying to go that direction for this Superman movie. I also think it's interesting. The music in the trailer sounds like it's going back a little bit of a callback to the
Yeah, it's
older
called
music,
back to John Williams.
which I think is an iconic Superman score. So really interested in that. The trailer looked fine. Didn't really do anything for me, which is probably why I didn't rank it even higher,
Yeah,
to
the
be
trailer
honest, than where it was.
was the reason why it was ranked as low as it was for me. I mean, that and being burned by Superman movies in the past. Um,
Yeah, it's
it's a
interesting
testament to
though.
James Gunn that it made my list. I mean, he's the only reason why it's on my list.
I was gonna say I think it's interesting to me that you ranked it so low, just because I think you're a bigger James Gunn fan than I am.
I am.
Um,
I would
so I
definitely agree
I
with
would have
that.
thought the James Gunn of it all would have probably
The
made
Superman
it
of it
higher.
all puts it down.
Yeah, lowers it. Yeah. So it's interesting, and I mean, it potentially, if it does well, it's supposed to. I mean, the intent is for this to kick off the DCU, so it's also going to kind of give us a picture of what the universe looks like from James Gunn's perspective. So I think that's also what really interests me about this movie is it's kind of a things to come potentially if the movie does well. I mean, if the movie's a flop, it's probably that it's
That's
a
lights
scrap
out
it. Yeah,
for the DCU.
it's a not to it's the Raiders where you just cut everybody and start try again.
Yeah,
Um,
man, all the pressure is there on James Gunn and Peter Safran,
yeah,
but
so
even more so on James Gunn because he wrote and directed this film.
yeah, so that I th- it's a lot of pressure to have. I definitely feel for the guy, but yeah, I think that's kind of my anticipation is I'm cautiously optimistic, but I am a little concerned because of the trailer.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I basically said what I have to say about
Yeah,
the film.
I guess the other
I've
thing.
been burnt by Superman so many times, like anticipating it and everything, and then just they haven't fully connected. Like I've liked him to a degree, but he's not. Superman doesn't work for me on the big screen like Batman does or Spider Man does or countless other superheroes. Like in my opinion, he has no right being like a big three with Batman and Spider-Man, um, based on what we've seen on the big screen so far, um, at least since they're in our lifetime. It's just really everyone knows who Superman is, but like, do audiences actually care? We're gonna find out this summer.
Yeah, we definitely will. I mean, he's definitely a household name, which he has going for him. And uh,
Yeah.
David Cornsweat's been good in the stuff that he's had, although he hasn't had a movie anywhere near this scale. So that'll be a big test for him.
Ooh.
And then I think Rachel Brosnahan is just like a much better Lois Lane choice than the Amy Adams with the Zack Snyder movies. So hopefully that
Yeah.
does. But she's also kind of somebody that hasn't really had a big movie. She's more known for television with the Marvelous Miss Basil.
Yeah. And I don't love the overwhelming superhero ness of this movie, like the amount of
Yeah,
heroes it has. Um, we'll see how it plays out, but it seems like it might turn people off. We'll see.
yeah, yeah. He'll have to be careful that it just doesn't distract too much from Superman. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll definitely see how it pans out. So that brings us to the next one on our list. This is the number two for tier LBF, and it was my number two movie overall, and Murph, your number nine, and that's the Fantastic Four First Steps movie. Do you want to talk about what Murph, why you had it? What would seem to be low for a movie that I think we're excited. We were all excited for. I know you, me, and Corey had talked about kind of quite a bit how about this movie, and looking forward to seeing. Although Corey, isn't a huge Fantastic Four fan, I think it's just kind of interesting to us because it seems like this is going to kind of kick off the next chapter of Marvel.
Yeah. That is the reason why it ended up making my list. I mean, we have three MCU movies coming out this year. This was the only one to make my list. Um, this made it because it seems like it's really going to kick off where the next two Avengers movies go, Doomsday and Secret Wars. I'm fully expecting Robert Downey Jr. to make his first appearance as Victor Von Doom, um, in this film, um, whether it's just a post-credit scene or whatever. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm looking forward to seeing the cast that they assembled. We've got Pedro Pascal, another Pedro movie on my list, um, as Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, Vanessa Kirby, who was also in Mission Impossible, as Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman. We have Evan Moss Backrack as Ben Grimm, the Thing, and then we have, um, as Johnny Storm slash the Human Torch, Joseph Quinn is playing him. Um, I think the only those two didn't. Those two didn't. Well, neither of them made it to my most anticipated movie list. Otherwise, they both made it to my most anticipated TV list. So did Pedro Pascal, actually. Um, but yeah, it doesn't have a director that I'm necessarily super excited for. That was like the outlier for me. Um,
Okay.
like everyone is a proven director on the big screen
Yeah.
that made my top 10 or 11 if with my cheat. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what you mean by like not. Yeah, he hasn't had proven himself in like a big theatrical movie, but I thought he did a good job. And this is probably part of the reason, part of the reason why it's as high as it is on my list is I think Matt Shackman I think he did a good job with WandaVision. Um, I thought that was a movie that could have failed horribly, and it was pretty enjoyable. It had the kind of like a retro feel, especially in those earlier episodes, based on that like the high conceptness of the show. And I think, this is also going to have like this retro feel to it. And I think I think Matt Shackman has kind of proven that he can do that time period, fairly well and kind of have like a quirky vibe to the Fantastic Four. So I think I think we've kind of felt like for Marvel movies and probably superhero movies in general, like there's a lot of sameness where it feels very formulaic. And I think Shackman's interesting because I think he could bring like a different, like a quirkiness and a different like vibe to to this movie. And then, like I said before, the kicking off this like new chapter or new phase of the MCU, I think makes this movie even more interesting.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting point because we regularly talk about WandaVision working as well as it did because it was a TV show, and TV shows and movies are two different beasts. So he did for the most part kill it on WandaVision until it really kind of morphed into an MCU movie for the last couple episodes when it didn't feel of a piece with the rest of the show. So it will be interesting to see how he does moving to that feature length film because it is very much
Yeah,
different than a TV show. But
that's a fair
I
point.
mean, he's going. We know he's going to get the look down. Like the aesthetic is going to be like perfect, based on how how WandaVision looked. Um,
And I don't know, did you? I think you did. I mean, there was a trailer that leaked that
yeah,
was
I
available and
did
pulled
see
down.
that last summer.
They hadn't filmed a lot. I think at that point it was more of like a concept trailer to have something to show at. I think D23 they might have showed it, and
Yeah, and Comic Con.
I think and Comic Con. And I think like it gave you a sense of the feel, and I thought that was really cool too. I think that kind of whereas like the Superman trailer brought me down, I think that trailer kind of raised it up a little bit for me.
Yeah, and similar to Superman. I mean, this is our third time we're getting Superman or this franchise like launched in our lifetime, um, and neither of the Fantastic Fours worked um, fully before. So it's like, will they be able to pull it off? Because I mean, we've got Disney and Pixar and Brad Bird with The Incredibles, and they've done their version of Fantastic Four brilliantly
Yeah.
twice now. So I would like to see the MCU and Kevin Feige um, pull it off with the Fantastic Four now that they have the rights to these characters.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, like talking about Fantastic Four and Superman back to back, is they're both kind of like these huge movies for the future of each franchise,
Oh
like
yeah,
for their superhero franchises. Like it feels like there's a lot riding on these two movies for
hmm
both Marvel and Warner Brothers.
yeah, and yeah, they both open in July. Both of the last like Fantastic Four 2005 came out only a year before Superman Returns, and Man of Steel came out in 2013, only 2 years before the Fantastic Four reboot. So they've been very closely linked to, and when they've come out in the past. But this is literally the same month, and like you said, like a, a turning point for both Warner Brothers and Disney as far as DC and Marvel goes. So
All right.
hopefully, third time's a charm.
All right. Well, that takes us to the number one movie on
Yes,
the
let's
tier
do it.
LBF, which I'm so excited for this movie. This movie was number one on my list, and as you could probably tell, it's like probably like number one in its like own stratosphere compared to my number two and three. But this was only number four on your list, which is still high compared, based on your how auteur your list
I mean,
seems to
yeah,
be.
I mean James Cameron is one as well. So, um,
But
sorry,
anyway,
spoiler.
yeah. So anyway, if you couldn't already tell or guess, the movie that is the number one is Avatar: Fire and Ash, which is the third movie in the Avatar series. Um, Man, I can't wait for this movie to come out. I think I'm already excited because it'll probably result in the re-release of the first and second movie in 3D,
Yeah, probably
which
at
is
least the second one.
yeah. I when they released the second one, I saw the first one again in 3D. I think you did too. They kind of
Yeah, that's what turned me
remastered
around.
it. They remastered it a bit so the graphics it looked better than it did, based on the huge time span between the first and second movie. And then, oh man, the second one was just such a level up from the first one.
Oh yeah,
The water looked incredible. Man, this was just such a great experience to see in 3D. So I'm part of my excitement for Avatar: Fire and Ash is to get to see two again in theaters with the 3D glasses. But I just think Cameron's kind of him bringing like some of more his more like action pieces to the second movie. I think is just going to continue to carry over for this franchise with Fire and Ash. Um, I have no idea. The water looked fantastic. I have no reason to believe that the fire and the lava and just like kind of that darker element isn't going to look awesome too in 3D. I think, yeah, I'm excited to. I don't think it's going to be as big of a level up from one to two as far as the visuals go, just because there's not that huge gap in timing. But I still think like this is probably going to be just like a visual feast of 3D visual. I mean, I don't know. These movies kind of feel like a theme park ride to me a little bit, and I love it. So, yeah, I can't wait for this movie to come out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking back at our most anticipated films of 2022, and I did not have Way of Water on my list at all. Um, you had it at number two. Um,
What was number one?
Corey did not have it on his list. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part One,
Okay.
which did not come out that year, and was not titled Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part One. Um,
So
so yeah,
it was really the number one movie for me that came out, I guess, or anticipated. Okay,
yeah,
that tracks. I guess I'm consistent in my love for Avatar.
yes, you are. And Corey is consistent with his love of Robert Eggers. The Northman was his number one film of 2022, just like Nosferatu was his number one film for this year. Um,
Very
who
interesting.
knew? Um, yeah,
But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this movie, Murph, just because you didn't have Way of Water on your top 10 before. And I think, you mentioned a little bit that you turned around on the Avatar franchise.
yeah, it turned me around in 2022, both with the re-release and with particularly The Way of Water. But I mean, I saw the first movie, its midnight opening back in 2009. Was not very impressed with it. It was like 3D cool, sure, but the story thought was nothing special. Um, Going into it, the next time I saw it, because I didn't see it ever at home after that, so it was basically almost 13 years later, seeing it in theaters um, again, but with my expectations significantly lower. Um, I enjoyed the film for what it was. Like, it's a very simple film.
Yeah.
It's kind of theme park ridey, like you said. Um, it's not trying. It's trying to. It's accessible to all audiences, and um, it's not trying to be any deep movie. The Way of Water definitely like felt like it was more, slightly more. I don't know. The stakes were higher. It felt like it was working with a little less. Um, I don't know. I don't know the way to put it. Like, it was fucking so bland. The first one, like the story.
Yeah, the action set pieces I don't think were anywhere near as cool as the second one.
Yeah, no, the action set pieces were nothing in comparison to the second one, but it
Man,
just.
that final water fight, they're just
I mean, he
like
was like he
the
was doing
whales are like
Titanic,
coming in and
Titanic and Aliens combined in 3D. Um, like, it
yeah.
just looked incredible. But I don't know. It just, the second one, it felt like the stakes were higher, and just bringing in the family for
Yeah, there was
Jason, Neytiri.
a little bit
Uh,
more complex emotions and things like that versus like the first one was kind of just like a basic love story of
yeah,
like Pocahontas. I think is kind of the joke that everyone said because it's like this
yeah,
guy that wasn't an
Pocahontas in space.
avatar, you know, yeah, just becoming a part of this like and the avatars or not the avatars, the Navi, um, are very feel like Native Americans, and so you've got this guy who's you know trying to become part of the Native American cult or this Navi Native American type of culture, and then having this love story with one of the Navi. Um, it did feel it is very Pocahontas. I think South Park also kind of made fun of it too at one point.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I just felt like the characters were definitely richer. They're still very broad characters that are accessible to everyone. Like they're all like archetypes, and um, they're not very deep, but it just worked. Just everything about the movie worked more for me than the original. So yeah, I'm excited to see like they went to that new like biome, I guess you can call it, in the Way of Water, with bringing in the whole that water tribe of what are they called again?
The Navi.
The Navi. Now we're gonna have the Ash people, Navi clan, in this one, and based on what he's done, James Cameron's done with fire in the past in his films. I'm thinking like Terminators. I'm very pumped to see this world develop in Avatar, and it looks like it's going to be more um, complex as well in this one, because from what he's saying, it sounds like it's going to be Navi versus Navi more than Navi versus humans, which should be more. It should be more exciting because it's a level playing field with fighting, and it's not just like the people fighting or the Navi fighting outsiders, who are just the clear bad guys. Maybe it'll be a little bit deeper, and it'll be tougher to decide who's the real bad guy in this one. Although it's a James Cameron movie, so it's probably going to be very clear that
Yeah, yeah. I'm expecting the
that,
Ash Navi to be
that the
like
rainforest
complete.
Navi are they're 100% the good guys.
Yeah, and the Ash Navis are going to be like complete jerks and
Yeah,
terrible. Probably
probably.
kills, do some horrible things just to make us hate them.
Yeah, but as long as the movie looks beautiful and entertains, thrills like Way of Water did, I will be very happy with it.
Can't
So
wait.
so yeah, I've gone from not caring about Avatar to being pretty high up on my most anticipated list, and
Yeah,
we can we
you're
can
a
say
convert.
yeah, and we can say it's Libreed Film's most anticipated film of 2025.
Who would have thought?
Not me. So yeah, those are the movies that we're looking forward to seeing in 2025. Hopefully, when we do our end of year recap, they end up being on our top 10 lists. A lot of these films, but
And they
that's
come
where
out and not move like has happened to me. You know, I can't do
yes,
another year of Mickey 17 moving to another year.
that would be unfortunate. But that it's supposed to come out soon. It's only 2 months away, so we'll see. But yeah, that's a wrap for today. This has been Doug and Murph at Live Breathe Film, signing off.